In the time machine it goes.
Awesome.
There we go. And so the travel time for you, Jeff, is countdown?
Yeah,
Countdown to travel?
we're looking forward to some changes coming up quick. So
I bet.
but,
Exciting times.
yes. All we need is for our youngest to get vaccinated, and then we can do more.
That's right.
I don't know if I told you about the staffing company I'm working with, but I had this brilliant idea. I'm now a hero in my house. Um, I have a bunch of military veterans I'm trying to help find jobs.
Right.
And so I had this aha moment yesterday. I reached out to NASA and SpaceX. So I'm trying to get in with them.
Oh, wow.
So I'm trying to wrangle a behind the scenes tour of a launch or something. So it's just new to my radar, but I figured
Oh, that sounds so exciting.
opening doors, I may as well open doors that are fun for my kids. So
I was just going to say, like, fun for the whole family. My goodness, that's amazing.
yeah. Like Shannon's genuinely jealous. She wants to go to NASA space camp in the worst way, but they cap it at, I think you have to be under 12.
Oh, well, geez, a year over, darn.
Exactly. All right. Looks like we've got Leah Green in the house. Hi, Dieter. We got people joining us. Awesome. We're going to have fun today.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Who else do we have? All right. So just for fun in the chat, just say hi, share where in the world you're from. We're going to get started in a minute. We're just letting people get logged in.
Yeah, put in the chat where you're from. Let us know.
Where you're from and what's the
Edmonton,
weather like?
Michigan. Love it.
All right. Well, welcome to Michigan. Welcome to Edmonton. Welcome to our friends in Ontario. Okay.
And we'll wait just another minute for those folks who may have been coming from another meeting, which oftentimes is the case. We know how busy these practices are.
Yeah, there's a new term called Zoom fatigue, and basically it's recognizing that in this digital world, we now go back to back. We don't get the little natural breaks in our day. So
this is it. Now, Malik is Malik and not Malik, unless we all refer to him incorrectly. But
well, nice to meet you, Malik. Monica, nice to see you. Paul, I don't know if we've met, so welcome. And we've got Laura and Charles. So excellent.
Excellent. Well, I think...
While I've got a captive audience, I just want to ask Malik if I can interview him for my podcast. Put him on the spot. I'll reach out to you separately. Sorry, Tara, I'll let you run the show.
By all means. No, this is all great. Always making connections, Jeff. The consummate connector you are. Love it. Well, I want to welcome everybody today. Certainly, this is your first peek at our webinar series at Auvenir. My name is Tara Walker and happy to be the moderator today. I'm very excited to introduce you to Jeff Borschowa, as well as ongoing to other thought leaders in the public practice space. For today's session, Jeff is going to be offering you tips on how to grow your practice by leveraging key strategic partnerships. But before we dive in, a quick introduction to myself. I am the sales leader at Auvenir, and my mission is to enable firms to audit smarter. And of course, digital transformation has so much to do with that. Personally, I have spent the last good part of 2 decades helping small businesses and accounting firms shift to digital technologies, and oftentimes collaborating directly with firms to develop and execute on the change management required to drive these transformational projects. So I've had the good fortune to build and connect practices to amazing cloud focused communities, as well as thought leaders like Jeff that support them in their journey. And so let's shift a little bit about Auvenir for those who are not familiar. Auvenir was created as a Big Four startup. And, you know, our focus is really about democratizing big firm technology for small to mid-sized firms. And, you know, we undertook extensive research across North America, asking for feedback from not only auditors, but the partners at firms as well as clients, of course. Audit clients always happy to get their feedback. And based on the insights provided by them, we developed the Auvenir platform. And based on the flexibility of our platform, we had the good fortune of a global firm reaching out, looking at Auvenir to help create their custom platform for their own private audits. So with that underway, we have two solution pillars. We have the custom pillar, as well as our commercial off-the-shelf solution that enables both simple to complex audit engagements. And our focus is always on flexibility, building an open API so that we can continue to grow as technology advances. And we have built a proprietary, very robust content management system that easily enables any firm to use their own customized methodology, content, or language beyond what we've already embedded for them. In this case, the CPA professional engagement guide, as well as ISA content. So with that, you know, we've actually had Auvenir's technology battle tested globally across 65 countries, and more than 8,000 engagements have already been conducted on our platform. But speaking of global presence, I am more than happy to introduce Jeff again here. For those who don't know Jeff, I've actually had the opportunity to work with Jeff for almost a decade. And as a well-known thought leader, as well as a published author in the public practice space, very happy to turn the reins over to you, Jeff. So welcome, and very excited to learn more.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Tara. And I was just doing the math. You said you've been in this space for 20 years. So clearly you started in your early 9 to 10-year-old age, because you're clearly not. But I appreciate you.
Definitely a reason for you being in my good books, Jeff. Check.
Yeah, so as Tara said, I've met her early on, and we've been fast friends, I think, from pretty much day one. And both of us, I think, I want to use this as an example for today. Both of us like to help one another, even if there's no financial monetary reason. It's just we like each other and it's a good thing to do. So today we're going to talk a lot about time, energy, and money. And one of the things I love is when I can do a presentation that ties in really easily to the co-presenter. And in this case, I'm going to show you how to save time, energy, and money from your networking efforts, your marketing efforts. And the good news is you'll also save time, energy, and money using a platform like Auvenir to streamline your auditing. And what I would encourage you to do with this time, energy, and money that we're saving is we want to invest it in relationships. So for anybody who doesn't know me, I'll get into that in a little bit, but the focus today is going to be what can we do to save time, energy, and money, and where should we be reinvesting that time, energy, and money? So this is not one of those formal presentations where you wait till the end and then you ask your questions. So if you have questions throughout, put them in the Q&A box. So just to give anybody who's new to Zoom, I hope there's nobody, but just in case, if you look at your little Zoom bar, there's a Q&A box. It's two little thought bubbles. Put your questions that you want answered in there. And then there's the chat box. And that's just if you've got comments that you want to share, or you want to share a story, or you agree with something, put your comments in the chat. And the reason I ask you to do that is I have the mental capacity to look in one place and present and talk. I start to stretch. Following the chat is hard to do while I'm talking because it gets distracted. And the chat scrolls, so eventually you lose it. But if you put your questions in, I like to answer them in context, but we'll also leave 5 to 10 minutes at the end for more questions. So like I said, if you have any questions, jump in, Q&A box. If you have any comments, chat box. So today we have a grand total of 3 objectives. And the assumption is, number 1, you want to grow your business. I'm going to plant the seed that I believe you should want to grow through attracting ideal clients. And then the last part is, how do we deliberately create a network of mutual referral relationships? And that's a very important thing, because if we can build that network, we can reduce the amount of time, energy, and money we're spending on other marketing. I'm just going to stop my video so that my giant head's not in the way of the slides. So a little bit about me. I've been in the accounting industry. I think I had my first job, if I look back, I started my first job in the accounting industry the year I was 18. I won't do the math for you, but I've had a couple of decades of experience. And the last decade, I've focused on research, writing books, and my focus is helping professionals grow their business without being tied to into the details in the day-to-day. So today, it's not about me. I'm going to give you a quick little overview of about me. Really, truly, I share about me just so you know, who is this Jeff guy? Why should I listen to him? And then I'm going to share my strategic sales process as an overview and then as a detailed analysis. So my goal here is, by the end of today, you can walk away and you've got actionable items you can implement, because knowledge without action is wasted potential. So since leaving the accounting profession in 2013, I've spent my time being a connector and being a business coach. I'm an avid learner. I read at least 2 to 3 business books a week. And through that, I look for great ideas. And I'm a huge fan of technology. So whenever I find something that saves people time and energy and money, I love to share it. So let's jump right in. Like I said, this is about you, not me. So this is a quote from my most recent book, Making Maximum Money. And basically, we're going to talk about strategic sales being the process of leveraging mutually beneficial partnerships to promote educational entertainment to attract your ideal clients in bulk. A little tip: if anybody's writing a book, read it out loud, because someday somebody's going to ask you to quote yourself. And sometimes it's hard to speak these things out. So, but we're going to talk about strategic sales. And we'll get into the components of strategic sales. But the thing I want to share for you today is that most businesses pursue clients one lead at a time, but through strategic sales, we're focusing on those mutually beneficial relationships that can bring you a high volume of your ideal clients. So I'm going to talk about the key components of strategic sales. But before I do, I just want to share one random little dirty secret of the marketing, sales, business development world. If you get good at marketing, i.e., you're able to place Facebook ads or Google ads or LinkedIn ads, and you're able to generate a consistent flow of leads, the world-class salespeople, when I worked at Intuit with Tara, people who close 20% are considered world-class. And that's because you're dealing with cold traffic from ads, turning them into clients. And that's world-class salespeople. Less than world-class, if they're lucky, they'll close maybe 1 in 100. So you're going to waste a lot of time and energy and money trying to close cold traffic. Now, flipping it around, I talked to somebody this morning, and this is anecdotal, but it plays out over and over and over again. When you get really good at relationships and referrals, even the world's worst salespeople, and sorry, I'm going to lump us accountants in there, world's worst salespeople can close 8 to 10 out of 10. And the reason I say 8 to 10, if you're closing 100% of the people you talk to, either you're taking everyone, you're not being picky enough, or more likely than not, you're not charging enough. So if you're getting 100% close rate with all the referrals you get, you want to raise your price so that at least 1 or 2 out of 10 say, I'm sorry, I can't afford it. And by the way, I can't afford you is not an insult. You should take that as a compliment. So let's get into the strategic sales. And leveraging is the first piece. And again, it might look like all the words are intentionally, are important and emphasized. That was on purpose. So leverage is about maximizing the output for the effort that you put in. So rather than doing a one-on-one conversation, we want to do many, one-to-many. And I'll talk about educational entertainment as an example, doing webinars, case studies, white papers, frequently asked questions. The goal is we want to educate people and entertain them. So my goal today is I want to educate you and entertain you. But again, if we can get in front of multiple prospects and educate and entertain them, then we can get more results from those referrals. Now, mutually beneficial, this is the part that a lot of people networking miss. It can't be I win, you lose. It can't be you win, I lose. We have to both win. And bonus points, if our clients win in the process, that creates a triple win. That's better than mutually beneficial. So we want all parties to a strategic sales relationship to benefit in some way. So as an example, if I'm doing this presentation for the Auvenir team, Auvenir benefits because they've got content to share with you. I benefit because I meet new people. And I hope that you benefit because you learn something in the process. So that's how we are mutually beneficial. Now, the goal of Promote is really simple. I promoted today's workshop and Auvenir promoted it, so we both win. So we both add value to our client bases and our contacts. Now, attract is probably the most important word on this whole page. I don't want to be that person. And for the record, I don't think most accountants want to be that person, chasing ambulances, begging for work, trying to get something in. We want people to come to us. And literally, if you do the right content in the right context for the right people, they should be able to say, I really need your help. And they should be coming to you, begging to work with you. So that's what we want, is ideal clients begging to work with us. Now, I left ideal clients to near the end, but the key is you need to define exactly who you want to work with. Not kind of, sort of, but exactly. And the whole point of an ideal client is if you find one, like attracts like, if you pick an industry, for example, if you find one, you can reach that whole industry. And instead of worrying about where's my next client going to come from, you can turn your attention to solving problems like, how do I use Auvenir to serve the clients I have? How do I deliver the world-class white glove service that'll make sure I am highly referable? And this is probably the longest slide. Everything else moves quicker, but this is the foundation. So the real advantage of strategic sales is everything's in bulk. We're not looking to have a one-to-one. And for the record, when I first got into running my own practice, I had learned that the only way to get clients was to take somebody for lunch. And that got really exhausting. And, I was having restaurant lunches every day. It's not great for your health. Instead, I learned once a month, I had a lunch group where I invited my ideal clients, their friends and prospects. And just for the record, my personal record, I turned as an accountant, I brought on 70, that's 70 new clients in a day, when at the time I only had 150 clients. So this is truly about bulk. And then the last word is about relationships. We need to make sure, as I said, this is mutually beneficial. So if you're a transactional networker, you're going to have constant struggle. You're going to wonder, why do I do what I do? And you're not going to get reciprocity. So we want partners who care deeply about helping us. So we're going to talk about the key strategic partners. And this is sort of a concept that's near and dear to me. And full disclosure, I spent most of my life doing this naturally. I think the word was unconscious competence. I just did things and I never thought about them. One of the blessings of COVID was I took some time and I really thought about what worked well for me throughout my career. And this presentation I'm sharing with you was the summation of all of the best of what I did. I'm going to spare you the trial and error that it took me. So you don't need to stumble through 30 years of professional life with me. I'm going to give you, in this hour we have together, I'm going to give you everything that led to success for me. So first of all, you need to adopt that mindset of, how do I build strategic relationships? And part of that is, how can I add value to those in my network? And then today we're going to cover how do you implement these strategies? And I'm going to talk to you, give you some tips on how to build mutually beneficial relationships. And then ultimately, I'm going to challenge you to network with like-minded businesses that also serve your ideal client. And for the record, I have a full 3-hour training where I go through step-by-step all of this. So we're going to cover it as much as I can in the time we have today, but just know that you're going to have to fill in some gaps. I'm going to give you the action steps. You're going to have to figure out how to make it work for you. So one of the things I like to start with always is the why. Because if the why matters to you and the why is important to you, you'll find a way to get this done. If you don't connect with the why, then this was an interesting hour and hopefully you got some value and that's it. So the first thing is, when you look at how do I grow a business, the shortest path to cash is always to connect with the existing network. Now, some of the bonuses, we want to reduce our marketing spend. I've actually seen firms that have shut down all marketing spend. Sorry to the marketers on this call. They've shut down all marketing spend other than whatever they do for the networking piece. And the goal would be, for example, if you have a speaker series, you can actually use that and turn your business development into a profit center. So just imagine, if you're making money attracting your ideal clients, you can put on wonderful events. You can put on white glove events. When I worked at Intuit, we did one with my colleague, Jeremy Burke. We did a tuxedo event. It was a lot of fun. But we also got a lot of transactions. We got a lot of deals out of it. Ultimately, if you use strategic partnerships, you can reduce your sales effort. And as we said, we're attracting those ideal clients, thus reducing our marketing effort. So a lot of this, as you'll see, the underlying theme of this entire presentation is, how do we reduce time, energy, and money while increasing results? And just as an added bonus, you'll get more of your ideal prospects turning into clients they come to you quicker and they close quicker because they've been referred by somebody who they trust. And overall, and I think this is the be all and end all, this makes a big difference in an accounting practice. Your ideal clients will stick with you longer, they'll pay you more, and they'll value you more, which in my world usually means we have better relationships, we have more fun. All right, so this is a 5-step process, so it's not really that complicated. But the reality is, if you skip any of these steps, I can paint a picture of what practice might look like for you. I work with a lot of accountants. When they come to me, they're working long hours. They're trying to figure out, how do I manage the thousands of emails? How do I juggle these tiny little clients? The best thing you can do for yourself is that clarity piece. And we're going to get into each of these in detail. I just want to introduce it, but with clarity, you want to identify who your ideal client is, and you want to be really clear on what you do for them. So I'm going to go through all of these, but these are the 5 C's of the strategic partner process. So you want to focus on being clear on who you serve. You want to provide content that solves problems. We'll get into that in a bit. You want to customize your key strategic partner plan for your business. You want to create an engagement plan, which is about building relationships. And then this is the part, for some reason, a lot of people miss. Step 5, you actually have to take action. So you actually have to connect with people. So let's talk about clarity. And this is a marketing term I hear a lot. It's jargon, but it's important. In the marketing world, they talk about your ideal client avatar. And I just want to share that marketing is hard when you try to be all things to all people. There's a saying, if you try to speak to everyone, you speak to no one. Now, flipping that around, word of mouth marketing that is focused on an ideal client avatar is easy. So you have a choice here. You can pick hard or easy. I'm not here to judge. I personally, and when I'm working with my clients, I recommend easy. So there are 3 potential avatars you want to look for. So there's 3 questions you should be asking yourself. The first is passion. Do you like them? Do you actually even want to work with them? Can you help them get results? Can you help them win? And then the last question is, can they afford to pay you? And I apologize, there's a little bit of theory up front. We'll get into the practical pretty quick. But under clarity, the second part of clarity is what? And you want to have some way of diagnosing their pain. And if you know an industry really well, and for the record, for the purposes of today, I'm going to encourage you to pick one industry in one geography and really practice all of these things, get it nailed down. Once you've nailed it for one industry, one geography, then it's easy to scale. And by the way, it's easier to change geography than it is to change industry, because geography, for example, if you're in Toronto, you can just apply that same logic to Vancouver. Whereas if you change an industry from, say, plumbers to dentists, you've got to learn a whole industry in detail. So the big thing is, you want to know what are 3 things that they need to know in order to properly diagnose the root cause of their pain. So your questions here, helping them get clear, because there's symptom pain and then there's root cause pain. We want to get to the root cause pain. And then we want to ask ourselves, what are 3 things they can do to ease their own pain? That might feel a little counterintuitive, but the reality is, sometimes if somebody comes to you and they're not clear what their pain is, you and them are going to waste a lot of time and energy together trying to figure out what their pain is. But if you give them some, let's call them over-the-counter sort of Tylenol solutions to take the pain down a little bit, when they get some relief, they're going to come back to you over and over. And more importantly, they're going to bring their friends to you. Now, you also want to think about what are 3 specific things you can do to ease their pain. And then you want to get into their mind and recognize, and this is a great question you can ask somebody when you're talking to them, what have they tried themselves to solve their pain? And now this is an important question. If you're looking to help somebody and you're looking to get paid above average fees, you need to get clear, and they need to be clear, what is the level of pain that they're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 is hangnail level pain that they really probably aren't going to care if they solve or not. 10 is migraine pain where they'll pay anything to make it go away. So within the world of strategic partnerships, we want to look at our avatar and we want to know what they're moving away from. So that might be frustrations that are immediate. I'm working long hours. I'm not making enough money. Fears are more of the imagined. So these are the hot buttons for our avatar. So the fears might be, I'll lose my house. And basically, we want to help them move away from their frustration and fears. And we want to help them move toward their wants and aspirations. So wants are immediate. I'd like a new car. Therefore, I'm going to go buy a new car. I feel better. Aspirations are, one day I'm going to change the world. But we want to be the vehicle that helps them get from their pain to their aspirations. And a great question to ask your ideal client is, what keeps you awake at night? And you want to think about, what would they search on Google in order to find a solution to their problem? So I'll get to the why this is important, but when you're talking to an industry, you want to be really clear what their frustrations and fears are, and you also want to be clear on their wants and aspirations. Now, the last part of clarity is you're going to create a signature system. And in this, you need to identify the problem. That's the frustration and fears. And you want to identify your promise, which is their wants and aspirations. And basically, you're going to create the bridge, which is ideally a 5-step process that takes them from they have their problem to they have that promise fulfilled. So we won't get into the specifics of a signature system, but basically you should always have 5 steps. And if you don't have the imagination to come up with 5 steps, I borrowed from the project management world. So there's almost always a current analysis. Where are we at? Then there's an ideal state. So for example, current analysis might be, we don't have our books up to date, or we haven't filed a tax return. So stage 1 is diagnostic in nature. Stage 2 is recommendation. So we recommend you get your taxes filed. Stage 3 is implementation, which could be getting that tax return filed. So we need this information. Here's what we need. Here's when we need it. Here's what we do. So stage 3 is implementation. Stage 4 might be ongoing maintenance. So what do we need to do to make sure your books and records stay up to date? And then stage 5, if you're stuck for one, my favorite stage 5 is optimization. And basically that's tweak and measure, test things, measure the results, tweak them. Test, measure, tweak, test, measure, tweak. So keep repeating. And that right there is a 5-step signature process. And you might think, well, that's not unique. But the reality is most clients have no idea what accountants do, or professionals in general. But just being able to look at a little flyer or brochure or your website and say, here's our 5-step process, believe it or not, that gives them great comfort. Now, in terms of content, and all of your content should promote your 5-step process. There was a famous large retail tax franchise that always started with, we'll do a 3-year audit and we guarantee we'll find you enough money to pay our fees. You don't want to compete like that, but you want to have a process and name it. So it could be firm name, tax process, but make it something named. and therefore you're a category of one. You're the only one in the world that offers your ABC firm audit process. And again, we all have a process. We just need to get really good at naming it and sharing the ingredients. So with content, there are two options. You can either create or curate content. And I'm going to go into a little detail on each. I'm going to rush through them because you'll have the slides. You can read this in detail yourself. But the decision to create or curate really comes down to, do you like to create new and original content? If you love creating content, which I do, think about which format is more natural for you. Personally, I like audio, I like written. I find video is a lot of effort because you got to coordinate lighting and sound, and it's a lot more effort to edit. So wherever possible, I would rather, create audio or written stuff. But maybe you like to draw, whatever it is. Think about your natural state and how you like to create content. If you do love that, then I'd recommend creating content. Now, if you don't like to create things, curate. And all curating means is, for example, I see this online all the time. People will share a post from one of their favorite authors and say, I really like this post by this author because of this. So if you have favorite books, favorite podcasts, favorite business resources, you can share that on social media yourself, or you can share it on your website. And we'll talk about strategic partners. But one of the beautiful things about a strategic partnership is you have built-in partners who will create content for you, so you don't have to do all the work. So I'm just going to give a couple of examples. My favorite is the white paper. We'll talk about that. It's the easiest. Top 5 lists are very easy. Case studies take a little extra effort, and presentations probably take the most effort. But typically a presentation has way more impact than the others combined. So again, you can walk through the slides, but if you're creating a white paper, what you need to make sure your white paper includes is you want to cover any potential objections they might have to working with you. So if, for example, I used to work with a firm in a downtown core, the number one objection was, I don't want to take my vehicle downtown. So in your white paper, you might talk about how easy your office is accessible by public transit or by Uber or whatever. But think about the objections, try to address them in the white paper in a subtle way. And you want to clearly state the problem that you're solving and get them to understand the cost of inaction. So, for example, if they paid, $10,000 in penalties and fines last year for not filing their tax return, you can assume that the cost of inaction this year is going to be at least $10,000. So you want them to quantify the cost of not solving the problem, and then you want to explain to them why they must solve the problem. And you want to lay this out in a story. And I like to share at least 3 symptoms. Not filing tax returns is a pretty obvious one, but being notified by the government that you owe taxes is probably one of the symptoms. And as before we talked about this, you want to share 3 ways they can solve the problem, and then always give them 3 choices. Choice number 1 is they stay with the status quo, they don't do anything. Choice number 2 is they can do it themselves, and if they need help, they reach out. Or the choice is you can work with us and we'll help you. And then you want to state the transformation that you offer and give them a really clear call to action, so that if they read this white paper, they should reach out to Tara at Auvenir to learn more. Now, the case study is not that different, but basically the big differences I'll point out. You want to share a story of an actual client who you helped. So for example, I was talking to somebody this morning who wastes at least 10 hours a week on social media, and he realized that he was getting 1 client for every 10 hours on social media. Whereas for networking, for every hour he spent networking, he was getting 10 clients. So it was really easy to describe his pain, and his cost of inaction was the time, money, and energy he was wasting on paying for ads. And we talked about the aspirations and fears. We want to share what the characters' hopes and dreams are, what they were trying to do. And we want to show the point where they realized they had to change. And we want to share what it's like to work with you. And we want to share the benefits that the character in the story realized. And most importantly, what does life look like now that we've solved that problem? And again, we have that call to action. Okay, I'll go through the presentation one very quickly. But basically, when you do a really good presentation, you want to include who is this for? So who's going to benefit by sitting through this hour? You want to also rule out people. So who is it not for? And I use a generic title. I like to solve the top 3 mistakes, and that's anecdotally whatever you experience. Audience is the ideal client avatar that you want to serve. And then the last piece of this is the problem they're trying to solve. So for example, top 3 mistakes plumbers make when trying to get their taxes filed. And then you want to have a subtitle that says strategies to get promise without pain. So you want to substitute, your promise of how you help them, and you want to show them you can eliminate that pain. And then in the presentation, you always want to have a little bit of about me. Why should they listen to you? Why should they listen to you now? And then what I do, and this is about helping them. I think the mistake I used to make, and I think a lot of accountants make, is they think I need to teach somebody how to do everything I know how to do. What you really want to do is teach them how to diagnose the pain so that they know what the root cause is, so that they can come to you and get help. So your goal is not to solve their problem. Your goal is to help them understand that you can solve their problem, and here's how they can come work with you. So for each of your top 3 mistakes, and 3 is the magic number, I wouldn't go more than 3. You want them to identify, do they have the problem? How much is that problem costing them? Why should they fix it? What are some common concerns? And how should they get help? And again, at the end of the presentation, you want to share your signature system. Here's the, Jeff's 5-step process to building a key strategic partner network. You want to have a call to action. And again, it can be passive. Go to our website to get more information, or it could be active. Book a call to talk to one of our accountants today. And again, like the white paper, like the case study, give them the 3 choices. They can do nothing, they can do something by themselves, or they can use our signature system. And then I like to always end, I'm a professional speaker. I love to get better. So I always end with a thank you and feedback. So, and the last one, I'm just going to briefly touch on the top 5 list. This is by far the easiest one to do. People love these on social media, but you want to define the problem and be clear on who has it and what it is. And then you want to share a solution or promise, give them a quote that's relevant, and then list 5 resources to make their lives better. So for me personally, I love books, I love podcasts. So I'll list, the 5 podcasts that'll change your life or solve this problem. And again, you always have a call to action. Now let's jump into the customized piece, which we're going to spend the rest of our time on today. I've created this wheel, and a lot of people laugh at my artwork, my artistic ability, but deliberately I picked a chuck wagon wheel because I want you to recognize how simple this can and should be. And what we do, we look at our business as the center of the wheel, and each of the spokes are strategic partners that connect us to the outer wheel the rim, which is all of our ideal clients. And just like in life, if we have these spokes that are uneven or we're missing some, we're going to have a bumpy ride. We're going to have that in business if we're missing the spokes. So we're going to get to this in a minute. But what you want to do is you want to think about the 11 or 12, and I'll talk to you about why it's 11 or 12, but you want to think about the 12 categories total, whether it includes your industry or not, that also serve your ideal client. So I'm not going to go through each of these, but the reality is there are natural partners. If you're an accountant, for example, I got a lot of referrals from other accountants. I was a mid-sized firm, so if I had clients that were too small for me, I referred them to a small firm. If I had clients that were too big for me, I referred them to a big firm. And both the small and big firm, they reciprocated. So that's where you would decide, is it 11 or is it 12? I personally think it's good to have strategic partners in your own industry. But basically, think about, this is the part you're going to customize. These are the 12 categories I, as an accountant, would like to reach. And just one thing I'll point out, I have banker, insurance, real estate. They are specifically commercial banker, commercial insurance, commercial realtor, because they deal with businesses that I want as clients. Now, if you want personal individuals as clients, you'd have a very different wheel. But if you're an accountant looking for corporate clients, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use this one. And again, each of these spokes will become relevant in a minute. So we talked about mutually beneficial. We want quality, not quantity. So a lot of people think more is better is better, not more. And so your homework here is to think about, and there's a worksheet you can fill in, but which categories are most relevant to your business, and who do you already know, like, and trust that you can put into a category. And basically, at a maximum, you want 3 strategic partners in each category. You want the best of the best. And the reason I say that is if somebody is just okay, you're going to get bad referrals from them. They're going to give you reputational damage if they don't take care of your clients. But the magic of 3 is if I have 3 contacts and I introduce a client of mine to those 3, 99% certainty my client will pick one of those 3, and I've added value to both my client and my partner. If I only have one partner in that category and my client doesn't like them, I've lost the value of that category. So part of what I'm going to teach you is you want to fill in the gaps through deliberate networking. So this is your key strategic partner plan. And this is a really, it's important to do. It's easy to do, easy to not do. So I have this in 5 steps. Step number 1 is you want to fill in the 12 categories that mean the most to you. Step number 2 is you want to write in, so you can print this slide out and do it manually, the people that you already know, like, and trust in each category. And as you'll see at the end of the day, you'll have 36 names. Now, if you are using your own industry as a category, you should be the first name you put down. Therefore, you're only going to have 35 names, but that's okay. And what I would say is your favorite best contacts go in column 1, and you basically want to keep in touch with them on a monthly basis. Your next favorite contacts go in column 2, and you want to contact and stay in touch with them every 2 months. And then your favorite but least favorite, your number 3 contacts, go in this final column, and you're going to keep up with them at least once every 3 months. So step 1 is to fill in the categories. Step 2 is to write in who you already know. Step 3 is to engage with your network and say, hey, I'm looking to build my professional network. I'd like to get to know you better. I'd like to work more closely with you. How would you feel about connecting to share leads? or introduce one another to our clients. And step 4, so once you've done that outreach, step 4, you want to ask, I've got some holes in my network, who can help me fill it? And then step 5 is an ongoing thing. You're going to evaluate the relationships you have here. You're going to maintain them. And over time, you're going to pick and choose who you're going to spend more time with, because you want to spend time with the people that you enjoy the most, but you get the best leads from and you get the best clients from. And that really truly is the heart of what we wanted to cover today. So I'm going to leave room for some questions, but I just wanted to remind you that our goal was to save time, money, and energy. So if you look back at this exercise we did, instead of trying to find, I know people who go to networking meetings and they're trying to build, relationships with 100 people. My goal for you is to have 36 people, 35 if you don't count yourself, but 36 people who are raving fans and happily bring you introductions. So the goal is we're going to save some time, we're going to save you money, we're going to save you energy. But ultimately, again, I'll remind you that that's what working with a tool like Auvenir does, is it helps you reduce your time, money, and energy on a file. Now think about if instead of getting, a lot of people say, oh, great, I can reduce my time, I'm billable hours, they think cost's going to go down. No, the reality is you can increase your turnaround, you can be faster with your clients, but you can also spend more time investing in the relationships with your existing clients. So here's my 12-step partner engagement program, then we'll break out to questions. Again, you can do this yourself, but if you haven't talked to somebody in a while, step 1 is connect with them on LinkedIn. Just reach out and say, hey, I can't believe we're not connected. Let's connect. Step 2, you want to clarify who their ideal client is. And I would just say, hey, Tara, I haven't talked to you in a while. I'd like to make some introductions to my client base to you because I think I've got some people that'll be a good fit. Could you confirm who your ideal client is or something like that? Like, who do you work for? What problem do you solve? And I just want to point out, you're clarifying their ideal client. It's not about you yet. Think about, relationship building. You go on a first date and all you talk about is yourself. I guarantee you don't get a second date. So in the early stage, it's about them. And this might seem counterintuitive, but trust me, it works. Step 3, you want to make introductions. So who do I know that could benefit my contact? You have to give before you can expect to receive. Now, step 4, if you have a webinar or a presentation or a luncheon, invite your contact to participate. Don't go for the, hey, why don't you bring all your clients? Host a networking event. I love doing these weekly on Zoom. I just invite a bunch of people and I invite them to invite their friends. Once you've made it about them, then you can share, oh, by the way, I'm looking for new clients. Here's who I serve. Here's what I do for them. Step 7 is again about them. So happy anniversary, my condolences on the loss of your pet. You want to acknowledge things in their life. Hey, I saw you in the news. Congratulations. Celebrate birthdays, share articles that are relevant to them. And, step 10 is asking for feedback. Just say, I introduced you to my friend Bob. How did that go? What could I do to make that better? And then, only then, step 11, you've earned it. Then you can ask for introductions. And then the piece most people miss is expressing gratitude. If you want introductions to dry up, forget to say thank you. I promise you they won't say anything, but they'll just stop making introductions. All right. So that's the last piece. We want to track our results. Some bonus things we get into talking about LinkedIn. You can create agreements with your partners. But the big thing I would say is have a system. You have to be consistent and you want to track results, not because you're keeping score. You just want to make sure that if somebody makes an introduction to you and it's a good one, you want to express your gratitude. If it wasn't a fit, express your gratitude, thank them, and say, you know, it wasn't a fit. We're not going to work together. Here's why. So hopefully some of the key takeaways today, and we're going to run a poll here in just a second, but the biggest takeaway is you should have learned how to build mutually beneficial relationships. We're going to open it to questions. So if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the Q&A box. You want to make sure you know who your avatar is. You want to know who your key strategic partners are. It's critical to growing your business. And you want to figure out, do you want to create or curate content? And then the last thing is have your 12-step engagement plan. And I mean, have a plan. You've got to be able to connect with people, and consistency is key. So if you reach out to somebody once and then you talk to them again in 5 years, that's not consistent. You need to be regular. So at this point, I'm going to thank you all for your time and attention. Couple of questions, and you don't need to answer them all, but if Natalie, if you want to launch the poll, the big question I'd ask is, you know, what was one of the things we covered that you'd like to have spent more time on? And if it's not on that list, just put it in the chat and say something else that was big. The other thing I would say is in the chat, share your biggest takeaway from today. Okay, so we'll leave that for about 10 more seconds. I guess, well, Natalie, you can tell me.
And actually, while people are actually, putting in their thoughts there, Jeff, a question relative to the key strategic partner plan. You had mentioned the categories, and in some cases, other CPA firms will be a strategic partner. I know I've often been asked, I don't really speak to the other firms in my locale because they're competition. So how do you deal with finding or identifying those key CPA firms? You mentioned, by size, but are there other ways you could think about them?
The two obvious ones, well, I'll give you three obvious ones. One is geography. If you have somebody in North Toronto and somebody in South Toronto, you're not competitors ever. It's just there's a lot of city to get between. So geography is one. Size is a very obvious one, which, by the way, usually coincides with geography because the big firms tend to be in the core. But the other one is service, the levels of service. And this is a sweet spot, I find. There are a lot of smaller firms that don't touch review and audit engagements. So if you're a mid-size or a large firm, literally every little accounting firm in your neighborhood is a potential partner for you. Now, the problem you have to overcome is the little always think big is a threat. So you need to have luncheons, you need to have open houses, you need to offer them some value. But the number one thing is you can never poach their clients. So if they give one as a referral, that's great. But it's, again, you can't expect it. But yeah, having looked at that, if you stay within your industry, there's somebody who focuses on plumbers, and if I focus on realtors, all the plumbers that come to me, I'm going to send to the person who focuses on plumbers. So if you're clear on who your avatar is, that's a good delineating thing. Now, just Natalie sharing the polling results. So people would like to see more about strategic partners, and looks like we could do a whole session on ideal client avatar. So Tara and team, for future sessions, that's good feedback.
Check.
Now, I just share this last slide. Well, I think second last slide. Tara and I are both here to help. So I would encourage everybody to connect with Tara. Her email is tara@auvenir.com. My LinkedIn is there. I don't automate or outsource my LinkedIn. You will talk to me if you reach me on LinkedIn. So, okay. And we've got some comments. Yes, Action Coach is another one. They focus a lot on strategic alliances. If you're an accountant, my favorite place to play is as an accountant, play nice with bookkeepers. My next favorite is business coaches and business brokers. All right, we have time, I think, for one more question.
Quick question. I often hear as well, Jeff, that folks are making lots of referrals, they're working with a partner, and that partner is not reciprocating. How do you deal with those partnerships?
That is a wonderful question. But first, I want people to ask themselves if they're deliberately cultivating win-win relationships. And a good sign that you're not is that you're giving and not receiving. So one of the things I would do is invite that person to lunch and say, I just want to have a chat with you about our relationship. Because odds are good. If you're not getting referrals, it's because you're, quote, a generalist. They don't know who to send to you, or they've had a bad experience with you in the past. So you can sit down and say, I believe in win-win relationships. What's one thing I could do today to be more referable to you? And that's the hardest. It's the easiest thing to do, but the hardest, because you have to listen and be open to the feedback.
Thank you so much. You've given us so many wonderful tidbits here, as well as some actionable tools that we can use, firms can be employing in their own practices to grow and learn how they can really leverage the key strategic partnerships. So thank you for your time today. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention, and we look forward to sharing the tools with you forthcoming.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tara, and thank you for everybody who participated. I hope everyone has a great day.
And to you, enjoy, everyone. Bye for now.